Okay, welcome to my March TBR video. You guys, so in February, I had 3 books that I wanted to read, and I absolutely eclipsed that. By the time we get to the monthly wrap-up, I will have read 7 books, so I doubled it and then another extra one. So, what are we doing for March? Well, Mr. Francie, in true Mr. Francie, let's go 100% with everything style. I have way too many books that I'm going to be reading this month, but they come with a purpose. So, for the last couple of months, aside from a biography and a mystery book, and I think that's it. Oh, and a contemporary, I read fantasy, and nothing but fantasy. So, for the month of March, just thinking March Madness, like, that's what it's going to be. I have so many books, and all of them, with the exception of a little rule that I'll discuss with all of you when we get to that point, all of them are different genres. So, let's get into the books I'm going to be reading this month, and then we're going to have a little special moment at the end of this video doing something that I've never done with you guys before. A little bit nervous about it, but we'll see how we go. The first book on my TBR for this month is The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. This is an adult fantasy, and you guys know how much I love my Mistborn. I can't wait to read this book. I tell you what, if the 1st of March is on the weekend, which I think it is, I think the 1st is a Sunday, then I'm probably going to stay up till midnight and just read the first page as soon as it turns midnight. So, can't wait to read this one. Next book is this one. Now, this book is called Conspiracy 365 February Code Black, and it's by Gabrielle Lord. I'm a little bit disappointed actually about this book, because when I picked it up, I thought it was a sci-fi, and I was like, okay, I'm finally going to read a sci-fi. I generally don't read them, and it's not a sci-fi. It's actually a thriller. So, yeah, so much for me getting a sci-fi book in this month. Not going to happen. It's going to be a thriller instead. And I don't read thrillers, so that's a new genre for me. Next book, R.L. Stine's Goosebumps book, and this one is called My Hairiest Adventure. It is a middle grade horror. I used to read Goosebumps a lot of the time when I was a child, but I have not read this one. And you know what? It's going to be great to get back into this one, and for horror's sake, to read a middle grade horror, I think would be a good start for me, because I don't like horror films, but I've always said that if I can pick up a horror book, I will read it. So I did read a couple of Stephen King books back in the day, so that's that one. The next one is a contemporary book, and it's called Pool Boy, and it is written by Michael Simmons, or Simons. I think it's Simmons because it's double M. That's a contemporary book, and I don't read contemporary, so there we go. Then we have a young adult fantasy new book that I have not tried before. It is called Heroes of Olympus, The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. And it is, despite the fact that it is a massive book. Oh my gosh, how many pages are in this book? Oh, the writing's pretty big though. But anyway, the page count is 553. So this is technically a tome. It feels like weight and size, width of the book, it feels like it's so much more than 553, but there you go, that is a YA fantasy book. So this will be my one fantasy that is not part of my exception rules category, which I'll talk to you about in just a moment. Then we have East. This is a book that was recommended by the booktuber that you guys know that I love. Have not mentioned her name yet, but she read this book and she ended up loving it. It is classified as a YA fairy tale fantasy by Edith Patel. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. That's the book right there. And it is based off of a Norwegian fairy tale, and then the fairy tale has been created into what looks like it could be a tome. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. It is seriously, you guys, this is ridiculous. It is 6 pages away from being a tome. Can we just call this tome? 494 pages. I mean, what's with these authors? Like, write 6 more pages and it's a tome. I'm going to call it a tome anyway. So it is East, based off a Norwegian fairy tale that's been expanded into a YA fantasy book. So really looking forward to that one. Next up is my classic book for the month, and I showed you guys that big red collection of books that I had, but then I found a book that everyone always talks about when it comes to classics, and so I purchased that one, and I'm going to read it first, and then I'll read the red book classics when I get the chance to. But my classic for this month is going to be F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. So I'm finally going to read this. Everyone always talks about it. Finally, Mr. Fancy is going to read this book. Then for adult horror, we have Stephen King's Pet Sematary, which, again, my favourite booktuber spoke about this, sorry about the glare, spoke about this book and how great it is. And yeah, just that. And she's like me, she doesn't like horror, so if she loves this, then I assume it's safe to say I'll love it. So we'll see how we go. And then we have my final exception rule book, which is Frostbite, the second book in the Vampire Academy series, and that's by Rochelle Mead. Okay, so I'm going to pause and be back to discuss my exception to the rule with you guys in just a moment. Okay, so I thought it might be fun to mix things up a little bit and really just have a little bit of fun. I find that generally speaking with books, I'm way too organized and I'll just pick books and start reading them in order and all that kind of stuff. And, well, we're not going to do that today because with all the different categories I have in the non-exceptions to the rules category, which is only, well, there are only 2 that are an exception to the rule, but the rest of them, I've written down their categories, placed them in this tab, and I'm going to draw out each weekly reading vlog, but we'll start here with the March TBR. I'm going to draw out a couple of genres, and those are the books that I'm going to focus on that week. So we'll discuss that in a moment. But there are 2 books that are an exception to the rule, and they are Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson and Frostbite by Rochelle Mead. I'm so sorry about the colour there. It seems to be having a lot of fun with the colour at the moment, so I apologise. Okay, let me explain why. These 2 books are going to be bookends for my TBR. This book, Well of Ascension, should not surprise you, whether you've been following me for a long time or just even in this video. It shouldn't surprise you that this is going to be my first book that I read this month. And you can see on the tag, I have written first. So this is the first book that I'm going to read for this month. Frostbite, as you can see on the tag, says last. This is the last book. I'm sorry about the glare. This is the last book I'm going to read this month. And the rest will be in between. So, we'll start with this one. Alright, we'll pause and we'll be right back for the draw ceremony. The very first Mr. Fancy draw ceremony. Don't go away. You'll definitely want to join me for that. We'll be right back. Okay, so the way that this draw ceremony is going to work is that this week I'm going to choose 2 categories because I already have the Well of Ascension that I'm starting with, and I want to have 3 books in my TBR per week. If this is going to work out, I'm going to need to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 9 books here, so if we can have 3 going at a time, that would be a good idea. We'll see how we go. This book is probably going to take me a little while to get through, but anyway, that's what I'm going to do. So the reason why I want to have 3 books going at any time, aside from Well of Ascension, which will take me a while to get through, is because there are times where I DNF books. So, yeah, I want to leave room in case I do DNF one, that I have another one ready that I'm going to go to, and not that I need to do another video, I need to do another draw. And also, yeah, I guess the randomness of it. So if I DNF a book, I will go to the second book that I draw. And if I don't DNF a book, but I finish the first book, then I'll go on to whatever the second book is. So it'll be in order of books 1, 2, and 3. Whether I read them alongside each other or whether I read them one after the other, we will see. Time will tell. This is an overly ambitious TBR for March. And so we're going to see how Mr. Fancy is doing at the end of the month of March and if I actually read all of these books or not. Some of them are very long, some of them are very short. They're all different categories except for the two exceptions to the rule that are fantasies from the series that I'm reading at the moment, but the rest are all different categories. Well, I think they're all different categories anyway. And they are... Yes. I have two horrors, but one is an adult horror and one's a middle grade horror. So I do consider them to be different genres because one is written in a middle grade style, which is a young children style. And then we have an adult horror, so completely different. All right, let's get on to the draw ceremony. Very excited. So book one is Well of Ascension, no matter what. What I'm about to draw out is book number 2. I'm very nervous because with some of these categories, I'm just a bit, I don't know if I want to read this. But anyway, let's see. And I'm also really disappointed, as I said, with the one I thought that was a sci-fi, but in fact it's a thriller. And so that's disappointing me because if I choose that first, I don't know, there's going to be a part of me that's going to want to go and purchase or borrow a sci-fi book instead. But anyway, it is what it is. We'll stick to it. All right, let's draw out the first category. Here we go. It's this one. The angels are telling me it's this one. So, all right. Anyway, let's just thrust Mr. Francie right into the deep end. It is, can you see that? Adult horror. Are you serious? So the gods have spoken. The second book I'm going to be reading is, and it's right on the top of the pile, Stephen King's Pet Sematary. Apparently it has an amazing plot, and it's really, really good as far as horrors are concerned, at least according to my booktuber friend. I'm going to call her my friend anyway. She feels like a friend. I'm watching her every day. So thank you, booktuber friend. You recommended this series and this book as well. So there we go. First 2 books. All right. If I end up DNFing The Well of Ascension, which I doubt, but if I do, then I move straight on to Pet Sematary. If I get through Well of Ascension and then end up DNFing Pet Sematary, the next book I'm going to go to is... We're just going to draw out one more... Oh! The gods have spoken. Did you see that? It just flew out. The gods, the angels, call them what you will. They have spoken. Oh, it's the next book in the pile. Oh my gosh, it's classic. There we go. Can you see that? I hope you can. Yes, classic. Which is, as I said, the next book on the pile. I thought I'd have to, grab them out of the order they're in, but it is the very next book on the pile. F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. I'm really looking forward to reading this and giving you guys my thoughts on it. So I'm actually really happy with this. I'm a little bit nervous with Pet Sematary, but I'm actually really excited for The Great Gatsby. So the others are going to go into the TBRs for weeks 2, 3, and 4 of March. And when we come back, we're going to wrap up the 3 books that I'm going to be reading for week 1 of March. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. Okay, so week 1 for March. I have a lot to get through. I have 2 tomes, I believe. I didn't check if this is a tome, but I'm sure it is. Actually, it's not. It's about 80 pages under being a tome. But anyway, I'm starting off with a tome. I was always going to start off with this, Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, book number 2 in the Mistborn series. Really excited about that. Second book to read if I DNF this, or once I finish this, or if I'm going to read a book alongside this, will be... Oh, do not want to drop Well of Ascension. That will be like book heresy. Will be Stephen King's Pet Sematary. So that's my second one. It's a horror, adult horror. So let's just jump right in. Forget the middle grade Goosebumps horror that I'm going to read later on in the month. Let's just jump right into adult horror when I haven't read horror in a very long time, but we'll see how that goes. And the third book I'm going to read for week 1 in March is F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. I had to look at what it's called there, The Great Gatsby. And so, let's try and hold them all up, shall we? In a way that works. Here we are. So that is my TBR for March week 1. The other books that I have... I'll just put these aside for a moment. These are the books that I have, such as East and the Heroes of Olympus, The Lost Hero, Pool Boy, the Goosebumps book. That would have been a better start for me, I think, than Pet Sematary. We'll see how we go. And this one, Conspiracy 365 February Code Black, which I thought was a sci-fi, but is actually a thriller. We will hang on to those. And when I do my reading vlog for the end of week 1, I will draw out as many to make it up to 3 as I can from this lovely box. So we'll see how we go. I have a lot of books to get through this month, guys, especially this first week of March. So send me so much luck to get through this, because I got through 7. Well, by the time we get to the end of February, I will have gotten through 7 books, and this is more than 7. How many did we say? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's 2 extra. 7 not including the bookends, Well of Ascension and Frostbite. So yeah, we'll see how we go. But in the meantime, I'm letting you guys go with peace, blessings, and so much love. If you have any comments, thoughts, and or questions, please do not hesitate to leave them in the space below. Mwah! Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy reading! Bye!